So I think it is only fair for us to go out there and make this video, because every single time something comes out about the newest Boston Bruins that had been signed to the dotted line for either way too much money or way too much term, guys who happen to be former Vancouver Canucks, we end up making videos about them. We've made videos about Nikita Zadorov, we've talked about Elias Lindholm multiple times, so why not go out there and pull the old Uno reverse card? Because today we are talking about the newest Boston-turned-Vancouver player, Jake DeBrusk. And I say, okay, the newest, okay, he's one of the three new guys. Forbort, Danton Heinen, Jake DeBrusk, all up in here, but Jake is the one we are talking about here in today's video, because via a recent interview that he had done on the Cam Strick Podcast, we now have ourselves word as to what Jake's entire situation with Boston really was. Now, if you needed the scoop, just in case you didn't catch yourself up to speed here, Jake DeBrusk was drafted by Boston in the 14th overall spot in the 2015 NHL Draft. He was a part of a trio of picks made by Boston, wherein they selected DeBrusk, Zach Senyshyn, and Jakub Zboril. They passed up on guys like Brock Besser, Matthew Barzal, Thomas Chabot, a bunch of other really talented players all went after this trio of Bruins. Senyshyn and Zboril didn't amount to anything with Boston, and Jake DeBrusk was okay. But that's the thing, he was just okay. He had maxed out at 50 points in a 64-game campaign last year in 2022-2023, and this most previous season saw DeBrusk put up 40 points in 80 games, yet 11 points in 13 playoff games. He really came alive, especially against the inevitable Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers squad in the second round. But if you've been following Jake DeBrusk and his entire journey in Boston, you would have noted that over the years there were some trade ideas floating around there, how him and his agent potentially would have wanted changes of scenery, and how this guy may or may not have been put in the best spot to succeed. But the thing is, in yesterday's interview with the Cam Strick Podcast, this is the show hosted by Cam Jansen and Andy Strickland, they had themselves Jake DeBrusk on as a guest, and he goes out there and confirms everything about the Boston Bruins and his trade request. And in fact, I should say trade requests, plural. Because in this video segment, DeBrusk goes out there and reveals pretty much the truth about it all. He says here in this video interview, and it is captioned and subtitled so it is easier for us to, go along with it, but he actually does say, yeah, he asked for a trade earlier, in the summer, just for the kind of way the team was shaping up, when it came to just where he was looking, where he could possibly play in the lineup and things like that, and kind of how the year ended. He got scratched in the playoffs, and he thought he knew it was time for a fresh start for both sides. He says in the video that, hey, it's time, maybe it's time. And obviously, he is speaking for himself, but that's kind of his thoughts going into the summer. He then says that it's nothing against the city of Boston, how everybody in Boston treated him well, and even his teammates. They went out there and had his back throughout the entire process. But he does confirm that he did request a trade, and he also talks about the awkwardness of it all, how after his trade request was actually publicized by the general media, he said that going into practice next day was a little bit awkward, but he does give credit. He says that the Boston Bruins players were totally understanding. They said, yeah, we know it's not because you don't like us. It's not because you don't like this city. It's because your opportunities and your circumstances on the team not being played, maybe not even being put in the best position to succeed. DeBrusk says multiple times in this video clip that he was kind of worrying for his career. He didn't know if he was going to have much of a career in this position going forward because it was just so uncertain. He wasn't being given much to work with there. And I, for one, happen to appreciate the honesty. I don't know about you, but I think it's nice to hear a player go out there and openly talk about that, especially since, the way he's talking about it, you can tell that this guy was worried. He was in a pretty tough spot. As the timeline in Boston went on, though, DeBrusk did not get traded. He ended up finishing out his contract, left in free agency, then signed the contract with the Vancouver Canucks. But it's interesting to note that the trade requests was actually verified by him in this show. What also is interesting as well, and this is also partly why I wanted to make this video, is the response to everything it is that Jake DeBrusk said in this clip. Because there are some Canucks fans that are replying to this Cam Strick video saying, oh, super excited to see this guy play with PD. He's going to get X amount of goals. He's going to score. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. He's what the Canucks needed. But there are also a bunch of Boston Bruins fans going out there and spitting some things as well. Most overpaid third liner in the league. Another bust draft pick by Don Sweeney. Third liner that disappears for 75% of the season. See, the bum never wanted to be here. Now hopefully all the Yans and Stans can let it go. He wanted $7 million a year to score 15 goals. Fabian Lysell will clear his production in 1 year. Hence the reason why Bruce Cassidy is now with the Golden Knights. So there are people that are going out there and defending him, but also a lot that are going out there and talking smack at the same time. And this is sort of what I wanted to say in response to all of that, because while it is true that Jake DeBrusk was inconsistent at times with the Boston Bruins, I mean, that's highlighted by his 14-point year in 2021, there still is enough in the tank there out of this guy that I do think makes him worth thinking about as a legitimate middle to top six option, especially on a team like Vancouver, where there was a need for a winger to play with Elias Pettersson. This guy could be just what the doctor ordered. Now, this will be, hopefully, the most talented player that Jake DeBrusk has ever played with, on a line, consistently for a good chunk of a season, because throughout his days in Boston, he wasn't really playing with the Pasternaks, he wasn't really getting time with the Marchands. I mean, they both play wing, so it's not really like the translatability was right there. So for DeBrusk to be given not only the term that he wanted on a contract, but also that position in the lineup as well, it is one of these beneficial win-win situations where Vancouver gets the guy that they needed, and Jake DeBrusk gets that opportunity. Now, you can say that there's a lot similar between the Canucks and DeBrusk and the Bruins and Lindholm. That entire thing that we had talked about in the past few videos is still there, but the difference is the contracts. Jake DeBrusk and Lindholm both signed for quite a long time, yes, but the dollar amounts are completely different. Jake DeBrusk is not making $7.75 million a year, and Elias Lindholm is. Lindholm also was a guy whom you could say maybe was at one point in his career a $7.75 or $8 million caliber guy, but who steadily declined post rejecting those deals. Jake DeBrusk was in a weird trade situation, he quickly bounced back, and then he had a stellar playoffs for Boston. There's momentum for this guy heading into the Vancouver Canucks season. Now, I guess you could say for the same thing that Elias Lindholm had some momentum in the 2024 playoffs with Vancouver. I get it, that's totally true. At the same time, though, I do think that the overall body of work and the season's worth of play that we had seen favored DeBrusk more so than Lindholm, even though there was a positional and defensive responsibility need for Lindholm in Vancouver. Either way, though, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Jake DeBrusk confirming his multiple trade requests with the Boston Bruins. How do you feel about Boston fans responding in a negative way to all of this, talking about how this validates their claims of him being overpaid, overplayed, and maybe not really worth it? And let me know your thoughts as to how this will translate into Vancouver point production. Do you think DeBrusk actually does have the best year of his career playing with Elias Pettersson? I think it's certainly possible that he goes through that similar JT Miller explosion of points. Miller was a 70-point guy in 60-something games in his very first season with Vancouver. So if Jake DeBrusk, playing with EP40 the entire year, has some sort of a revival like that, he gets some sort of an Andrei Kuzmenko boost to his point production and his productivity, then I think everything would have gone right. And honestly, I think that does have a fairly decent chance of happening. But if you're a Canucks fan, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel that entire situation will translate here in Vancouver? Are you more on the optimistic side or the pessimistic side? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.